Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dynamic Character Productions Monte Carlo mid-season draft update. I'm John, back here, joined again by my fellow Exile Island castaways, Andrew, Michael Zucker, and Mike Simmons. Gentlemen, welcome back. How are each of you doing?
I'd be doing better if my fantasy team was doing better.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I have a couple of people that have already been eliminated, but I'm thoroughly enjoying the season, so I don't mind it so much because I'm very much entertained and exciting to see what happens going forward.
Well, as a person with a perfect draft so far, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm enjoying the season. I'm biased, but I still think ours is better. But I'm still enjoying it. I think there's a lot of great characters. Which I mean, we had great. I think we had great characters, but this one is they're doing a little bit better in the character department.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that one, Andrew. The characters on this season are really bringing it. And while we had some great characters on our season, we saw a lot of it behind the scenes. But these characters are bringing it in every one of these episodes. It feels like we had 17 completely unique castaways each who were bringing themselves to every single moment of this game.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's fun watching it from this side. Like, when we're watching our first season, it was fun sitting there and watching everything, but we always had in the back of our minds, we knew how everything was going to play out. It was just more like, how are we going to be edited? Which we're all edited fine. But with this one, you don't know anything. And like, I've seen a couple of the people that have played this season, in other games, but I don't know how the season plays out. And I think that I can pay more attention to the characters and I can pay more attention to the gameplay and not really sit there thinking, oh, I know what happens next. So.
Yeah, being on the other side of things, watching it all play out instead of knowing the outcome, it's really a completely different viewing experience this time around based on the game that we played. What are you guys thinking of the format of the game so far? How did you guys like the opening, one world twist that they hit us with?
I have to say, and one thing going back to the character discussion you guys were talking about, something that's interesting is it's one thing to watch Survivor and be like, oh man, if I was on Survivor, I'd be like this crazy character, you know what I mean? But I'm interested to know if the people in this game are the way that they are, like the characters that they built, or if they're really playing the part. And that's something that's interesting because, when I'm watching Survivor or when I'm watching this episode, I'm like, man, I think I'd make a good character. But in reality, I'm like, when I played, I wasn't like super crazy or anything like that. I didn't have a big persona, but I feel like that makes the game a lot harder too. If you're building this character, that's a whole nother aspect of the game that you have to stay on top of. But in terms of, the game and the way it's set up, man, kudos to everybody on production and everything like that, because this is awesome. And I love the theming. I love everything that's going along with it, the editing, the production part of it. It's awesome. It really is. And starting with the kind of one world aspect of it just adds another element to the game where going forward after that, you don't know what everybody's kind of feeling. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of piggyback off that. I think that comparing it to our season, we had kind of the Exile Island dynamic where that was kind of the way in which pre-merge that, and also pre-swap, but where kind of the tribes had just one person respectively, but had kind of intermingling of the tribes. But with the one world, I know it wasn't tribe format, but it was still everyone, intermingling with one another. So it was times 20 what Exile Island brought. The one world concept really gave that sense of, again, chaos and just all sorts of dynamics that you have to try and keep in the back of your mind, but you're also trying to ingratiate yourself in those conversations too. So then when you divide those people in half, essentially, it really now you're thinking, okay, well, if I didn't really get along with this person, but now I'm on a tribe with them, how do I kind of go about that? And I really liked a couple people on the other tribe, I got to do what I have to do to make sure that they, even though I don't have control of the situation, do what I have to do to make sure that they stay in the game. So that way we can maybe link up later on. So yeah, it really just brings a lot of interesting dynamics to the game. So I really enjoyed that.
And to piggy off both, I mean, we saw that specifically happen within the first actual boot from the game. Going into the one world, the 9 or the 8 that lost that first challenge. Was it the 9 or the 8 that lost the challenge?
The 8 lost the challenge.
The 8 lost the challenge. And everyone seems like, oh man, Nick's being kind of this, Nick's being kind of that. Let's go after Nick. And the way the episode is, showing us, it looks like Nick's probably going to go home next. Unfortunately, we didn't get to that part until the next episode. But when the tribes were finally established, they just kind of picked up from where they left off. It was like, okay, Nick still thinks that he's doing this, that, and the other, when in reality, everyone is going after Nick -2. And then, the next tribal where everyone's like, okay, well, was it Julia that went next? She thinks, everyone's like, oh, she might have people on the other side. She might. And also, but in the end, she goes. And so, I think that that one world twist might still end up paying off a little bit more down the line. We've already seen it happen very early in this game. So I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, we've especially seen it a lot in each of the episodes. It keeps getting mentioned that, before there's this tribal moment, and everyone's just considering these players' relationships they made in that first stretch of the game. So they had a few days where there were all 17 contestants could talk to each other. And that's a lot of people to talk to. It was hard on our season when we had 8 people to talk to at the beginning of the game. They're doubling that. They have so many people to talk to. And some of them navigated it really well. They found people that they really connected with. Some people, like Nick, tried connecting with literally everyone, and that backfired on him. Some people, like Elijah, was being a little too involved with the vote in that first bit, and we saw it come back to bite him this week. It's really interesting how much that small portion of the game can just change the complete dynamic of how the season unfolds.
Yeah, and so, just going off of personal experience, I've played in a fair few Big Brother orgs, and that's exactly how Big Brother orgs are set up, where it's just you have 16 to 20 people, and you have to maintain relationships with all of them without doing too much where they think, oh, this person's a threat, but also you don't want to be considered inactive, which is what we saw in the technical third round, but really the second round, where people thought that Julia was being more inactive than everybody else. So there's a fine line between being Nick and being Julia that you have to find early in a one world type game. And I feel like the people that are surviving are, maintaining those relationships they built in the first, I think, 6-7 days. And you really see it paying dividends as it goes on.
I think that dynamic of adding the one world start with the multiple swaps, I think that really adds like another addition to your social game, because it's like, okay, you're not just with your original tribe. It's okay, how well did you fit in socially, and how many connections did you make, and how many strong connections? You could talk to anybody, you could talk to all the castaways, but what was the connection like? Did you just talk to them and it's kind of like some BS both ways, or did you make like a real connection with somebody that you can use when you do end up swapping multiple times? And I think that's kind of happening a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I just am using, again, our experiences, my experience, to just really, again, appreciate like everyone who's made it this far, because again, as hard as it was for us, and the swaps that we had, and the different personalities we had to deal with, again, they started with all personalities day one, and it was like that for the first portion of the game. And then they had not one but 2 swaps, and they went from two different tribes to now 3 tribes. And you had the same twist we had, where the 2 tribes who did not win had to combine to vote out one person and one joint tribal. So again, everyone who's made it this far has in my opinion earned their spot, and has played in their own right. They're an exceptional game to get to this point. And again, I just appreciate from living it and doing it, but knowing that they have, in a way, done it with more variables to work with. Again, it's just props to them.
Shout out to Victoria and Connor 2 Cups.
As a viewer, the swaps and the twists, they're so much fun to watch. But I can tell you, as a player, oh my gosh, I hate them.
Oh yeah, I'd be so pissed right now. I would just be like, my blood pressure would be through the roof right now if I were playing.
But it's a test to your social game, really. Can you get put into these different situations and make the best of it?
Yeah, I can't imagine how someone like Connor, who went out at a vote like we just saw with his 3 tribal council, must have felt going through it again. I mean, Andrew and Zucker, you were both a part of that vote. Simmons and I were immune because we won that challenge and didn't have to deal with the chaos of that. Like, what do you think's going through Connor's head at this moment?
Well, as we saw in the episode, he's like, oh yeah, this is the number that I got voted out last time. And, I think Morgan asked him that question during the tribal. And, I'm biased because I was rooting for Connor to get out of the situation because I was somewhat responsible for sending him home last time. And I think that the fact that he was open about how he came into this one and was like, yeah, I feel like I'm in the exact same spot, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that was very ballsy of him, because if people watched that season, they would know, okay, so what is Connor actually doing? But also him being vulnerable in that type of situation, saying like, because, people hear that, they might think, wouldn't it be funny if we just vote out Connor the same round again, just for, that phrase. I'm not going to do that. So I think going through his head, it was, okay, let's get through this, but also let's not dwell on the past. Like, yes, this is the moment, but let's not dwell on this. This is what I'm doing in this game. And hopefully I can do, what I need to do to get through this. And as we saw, I mean, he wasn't even really a target by the end of it.
Yeah, I think, again, we obviously at various points in the game, we all worked, whether directly or indirectly, with Connor. And I think, again, we have a different perspective of him watching him now, but I think also he's learned and he's grown a lot from his experiences in his first game. And, I think he's, in one way, I think he's just as aggressive, if not maybe more, but I think he's doing that more behind the scenes, more in confessionals. But with what we're seeing, he's, he understands, he can't be as vocal like during those challenges and tribals. He's got to keep his mouth shut at certain times, and he's got to just kind of let some of the players almost put themselves in the front too much, and let them kind of, do some things that may put them in people's minds. And so even though obviously the situation was very identical in terms of the exact, same format with the 2 tribes coming together, and he's now still a part of that, I really didn't think he was, again, vulnerable. I mean, everyone technically is, but I didn't think he was as vulnerable, obviously, as he wound up being the last time. But yeah, it was just kind of, a deja vu type moment where he was, again, in that same position. And, would have on one hand been really kind of shitty, really sucky for him if it was the exact same way he went out. But I think, again, he's done enough to this point where he's able to, look back and say, yeah, I really didn't think I was in that much danger at this point in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely seems like he's taken what he learned in our game and is applying it to this. We see him find 2 different advantages at this point. He's really he's laying a lot lower. I'm not getting the sense that Connor is the chaotic Connor that we were playing with back last year. He definitely is a lot calmer. He's cooler. He is a lot more articulate. He's not asking to be sent to Exile Island, not only because there's no Exile Island, but also because he realized that was a bad move last time. But if we look over at our other Exile Island alumni on this cast with Victoria, she is seemingly playing this fantastic social game where people are connecting to her, but people still feel that she's too quiet, and that could be very threatening. We saw Kiley talking about that in this latest episode. What do you guys think? How, Simmons, you were the only one of us who was actually on a tribe with Victoria. How do you feel like her game is different than last time?
I do think she's been a little more involved. Now, she has been quiet, yes, but I think that's a part of her strategy a little bit. But I do think it works. I think it could scare people because it's like, okay, she might be too quiet. Is she just not talking to me? Is she talking to other people? That type of thing. But I do think she's playing a better game this time, and I think it's showing. I think she's a real threat in this game, and they're absolutely right. They should be worried about Victoria because I think she's a definite threat to win this game. From personal experience before, Victoria is very knowledgeable. She knows the game. So if she's being quiet, that's a part of her strategy. And she's thinking behind the scenes of, okay, this is what I think's going on, and assessing it rather than just being, someone who's trying to take control and make things chaos, like someone like Connor. Or
yeah, we all remember Connor from last year.
So I don't.
Oh,
sorry. I'll just go off of that. In her intro video, she says that she's not the most popular person in any friend group that she's in, but that she's in a lot of friend groups and that she has a lot of people that relate to her, that flock to her. And in a game like this, you almost don't want to be anyone's best friend because people will lock into that and try to target you or target your person. But you want to be the person that everyone talks to, and especially with the merge is seemingly coming up soon, she could be in a great spot where she has people that may not be looking at her as their number one, and they really don't need to look at her as her number one because they know that they have her as, in their heads, a number, but in her head it's like, I have all these people telling me everything that's going on. So I think that she's in a decent spot. I'm hoping that she's in a decent spot because she's on my team, but I do think that people. What scares me is there are people in this game that can read people very well. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things about my season was the John confessional, where he basically just lays out my entire game, and I'm like, I love this man after the fact. But speaking of John, there is another John in this game that has done really well at reading people, or at least having an idea of what's going on in actuality. And I feel like he might screw up and assume that Victoria is doing something that she's not. It could cost her the game. Obviously, I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but there are people in this game that are very good at reading individuals, which is crazy, playing on a Skype Zoom type game. But let's hope. Let's keep on rooting for Victoria, y'all.
Zachary, is there anyone else on this season who's really sticking out to you?
Let me look at my list here. I think we touched on a few people already. I think I kind of have been drawn to Andrew a bit. I think to me, I'm getting kind of like almost like some Greg vibes, in the sense that he's like, again, a lot of like everyone kind of is going to him, like talking to him. And I don't think a lot of people are kind of seeing that. And maybe at some point that will happen. Obviously, in our game, people realize that at the very end, at the final five. And obviously before that, but, kind of made it happen at the final five. But I think he's, again, playing a very well-rounded game. He's obviously been on, the winning side of the tribal portion of the game quite a bit. I think, again, socially and strategically, he's aware of and involved with a lot of plans. And he's in the know of those plans. So I think, again, I've just been kind of drawn to the type of game he's playing. It is a very similar game I wish I had played, but I think if I were to pick one person at this point, it would be Andrew.
Simmons, what about you? Anyone you're really rooting for who's really caught your eye?
I don't know if I would say something like that, but one person that I wish would give me a little bit more was Mike. I want more, villain vibes. I want him to be, he's kind of talking a big talk. I want to see it, I want it to be that way. But, I don't think you can win that way. That's just my opinion. But so it's kind of smart of him to not do that exactly. But I do want to see maybe a little bit more villain type vibes and make it a little more interesting.
Well, we see him narrowly escaping the vote here in this last episode. So let's see how he takes that and runs with it. And now that he's finally reconnected with Kiley, what can the two of them do?
Yeah, I mean, it gives him a little sliver of hope to keep going forward. And, you know, maybe it's not in his best interest to be the villain that he talks up to be, but, you know, as a viewer, I'd love to see it.
And Andrew, who's sticking out for you?
As far as winner picks, I don't have that yet. I'll wait till the merge. But people that have just stood out on camera, you know, Kiley has definitely stood out on camera. Margaret, for me, has. But people like Jonathan, I know I'm gonna go back to Jonathan for a second, just because, I mean, we've seen multiple times now where, and I don't know who was it, Kyle, this episode that said, you know, you're really good at reading people, reading how people are going to vote. Was that Kyle? Okay. And I feel like that narrative could continue throughout the season. I won't sit here and say that I think that it'll get him to the end, because I don't think that it will, but I think that it'll make him one of those characters I talked about at the beginning of the episode. Also, which Michael is it? The Michael that voted for other Michael during Tribal today. Yes. Obviously I relate to him because I have to keep watching my language, but the drizzling poos at challenges, like I'm not good at challenges at all. And the fact that he is open about that kind of really struck a chord with me, because, you know, as someone that is very much a jabroni when it comes to challenges, when it comes to work, I feel like I have to latch on to that type of person. Obviously, the two folk from our season, I am, you know, pulling for, even though I was robbed of having Connor on my fantasy team. I'm still pulling for him to do well. Just as overall, I just really enjoy this cast, and that's something that, you know, the two long games that y'all have done so far, that's something that y'all have gotten right. I mean, you've done a lot of things right, but specifically the cast. I think that you all have picked from different sections of the org community. You've picked people from communities that don't even play orgs. And, you know, as we saw with people like these two sitting in front of me, people like Greg, people like our final two, you know, they don't have to have this experience of playing games to do well in games. And I feel like with them now, a nice mix of people that have played and people that haven't, we're seeing the game evolve, as a douchebag on TV might say. No offense, Jeff Probst. So I'm interested to see how the game continues from here.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how these players are adapting to the fact that, because we saw in this episode where Andrew continuously brought up Kyle's placement in one of the minis that we produced. So these people aren't just veterans who have played the game and new players who have played the game. These are people who have now watched each other play the game too. And it's really interesting to see how that's going to unfold as we get into this merge portion of the game.
Yeah, they're scouting. They're basically just scouting. We heard Kyle's placement brought up at least 3 times this episode. I know it was brought up at least once during one of the voting confessionals towards the end. But, you know, people care about that. And yes, it might be random or whatever to some of us, but like, whatever you put stock in, if you care about a person's placement, okay. If you care that someone played before, okay. If you care about anything else, yeah, okay. But if people are going to be picking things like that, this is going to be a bloodbath, hopefully. As long as everyone's civil.
No.
But we'll see.
Don't vote for Kyle. Keep him in the game. I don't care how many games he's played, his finishes, come on.
Well, now he's gone.
Yep, he's gone. He didn't make that. He got the corner boot. And unfortunately, that takes us to the portion of this video where we're just talking. Let's talk our teams. So back before the season was made, the 4 of us got together and we all drafted our teams. So Andrew, Zucker, and Simmons each have 5 members of the cast, and I'm left over with 2 cast members. So my cast members count for 2.5 times points to make it a little more fair. Andrew's team consists of Victoria, McKenna, Andrew, Margaret, and Parker, all of who are still in the game going into the merge. Zucker has Shea, Jonathan, Kiley, Michael Reilly, and Elijah. He's lost 2 now after this week. Simmons has Julia, Kyle, Nick, Mike, Rick, and Will, only leaving him with the latter 2 there. And I have Connor and Micah. Micah, of course, being gone last week, leaves me with just Connor in the game. Luckily for me, Connor is seemingly keeping his mouth shut, talking to the right people, and finding advantages. Last time we talked, we didn't have the scoring, but we do have the scoring now. The way we are accumulating points in this fantasy pool, if one of the contestants wins a tribe immunity, that is plus 2 points. They win an individual immunity, it's 5 points. If they find an idol, it's 3. If they find a 50-50 coin, it's 2. Correct idol play, this means that it is a nullifying a majority of votes, 5 points. 50-50 lands on safe, that's 2 points. Goes out with an idol or advantage, minus 4 points. So, sorry, Zucker, but Shea did have an advantage when he had to leave the game.
Yeah, don't remind me.
Each confessional is worth 1 point. Crying in a confessional is minus 3 points. If you're voted out, minus 5 points. Rocked out, it's minus 2 points. If you're a unanimous vote getter, so if you get all of the votes in a tribal council other than the one you cast, minus 2 points. If you get in a fight, plus 2 points. We love that drama. If you get roasted, minus 1 point. The winner gets 20 points. Second place gets 10 points. And third place gets 5 points.
Can I speak on something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just saying, I'm kind of a crybaby. And I know it wasn't much show during the season, but I cried during a few confessionals. But on the other hand, people that roast someone, I mean, I'm good for that as well. But we also had a couple people in our season that did a lot better at it. So I feel like you're giving points to the wrong group of emotional people. You should be giving points to the people that cry.
I didn't make the point totals. I was given the point totals. I'm just the one here sharing them with you. We drafted on an equal field of not knowing who was getting points.
Fair.
I might be in negatives.
Yeah.
No, I will. I am.
Yeah, I'm not too confident.
No one is in the negatives. It's actually quite a quite a close race, considering the fact that Simmons only has 2 people left on his tribe. But our total points at this time, Simmons is in last place with 27 points.
More than I thought.
Zucker is in third with 39 points.
Ooh, wow, okay.
So it comes down between me and Andrew here. Myself with only Connor left in the game, and Andrew with a full team of 5 are tied at 51 points.
Collusion.
I might not even get 51 on the whole season.
Who knows? We'll have to wait and find out. But this is where we're sitting at right now. I would say Andrew's probably heavily favored here. Because that makes more sense with what I was saying. Much more heavily favored with having 5 people left in the game. It just gives him more chances to gain points. But keep in mind, that means he hasn't lost any points for people being voted out yet.
True.
So
it'll change a little bit when Will wins and Mike comes in second.
Exactly.
It'll change the final 5 when all of them pick each other up one by one.
Well, we're just going to have to wait and find out. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It's been a pleasure talking to you 3 gentlemen tonight. Keep tuning in to Dynamic Character Productions, Monte Carlo. New episodes airing every Monday and Thursday with a whole slew of coverage happening almost every other day of the week. Please click that like and subscribe button and tell all your friends. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. everyone.